Hi everyone, welcome to the Fight with Teddy Atlas. I'm Teddy Atlas III. I'm joined as always, Boxing Hall of Famer, my father, my main man, Teddy Atlas. How you doing, bud?
Good. How are you? How's my grandson and everybody, your wife, everyone? But how's little Teddy doing?
He's good. Everybody's good. I've been tied up at the house watching the fights. We live streamed last night and getting ready to do the podcast today. So he's entertained right now by his mom and his iPad. But as soon as we're done, I'm going to take him out and get him to the park.
Yeah. Tell him thank you for allowing me to steal his father. And I will put out a thank you from me and from all the boxing fans out there on the ropes and that listen to this podcast. They don't know what is involved as far as your time. My time is minimal compared to the time you put into it. And that means it's time you're taking away from a 7-year-old. So I appreciate it, I'm sure, and I know that the fans appreciate it. And tell them we'll make it up to them. We'll make it up to him, and we'll get him a championship belt that we'll have it made up for him being a champion, for allowing us to try to build this and continue to give the fans out there, our audience out there, I should say, the things they want. And we got a new number one before we go on with the boxing and the MMA, UFC. We have a new number one. Everybody wants to be number one. Well, Indiana University, who would have thunk it at the beginning of the year? I know NIL money has changed everything. I don't know if money is always at the root of things, but it's at the root of some things. But of course, then it comes to drive, and it comes to talent, it comes to execution. And Indiana University, boy, they have shown drive, they have shown execution, they have shown themselves to be a special team. And last night, while we were doing the live streaming and busy with all that, Indiana was busy knocking off Ohio State and becoming the new number one team in college football. What an interesting scenario. What an interesting landscape college football has become. And then somebody just sent me something I just read before we came on the air here, that Notre Dame did not make the college, I guess it was between them and Miami, they did not make the college playoffs, and therefore they're going to refuse to go into a bowl game. So very interesting college football scene right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you expand the playoff field to 12 teams. You think that would satisfy some of these problems. Somebody's always going to be left out. Somebody's always going to be unhappy. Obviously, Notre Dame is independent. They schedule their own teams. The strength of schedule wasn't enough to make the playoffs. They feel a certain way. And like you said, they don't want to be in the bowl game. It's unfortunate. Too much of that going on with sports for me, for the university to make that stand and take that opportunity away from the kids. We're seeing too much of that in sports. We're seeing kids opting out of bowl games for decision-making of the pro. Where's the love of the game? Where's the passion of the sport? NCAA is in trouble, in my opinion. I don't like the landscape and where it's going. But congrats to Indiana. Unbelievable win. Got to see a few highlights. Ohio State misses a 27-yard field goal. Would have tied the game with a few minutes left. Yeah, different landscape. I'm still saying it's got to be one of those heavyweights, though. And the heavyweights that we talk about in football, they come from the SEC. And for me, Georgia is the team I've been keeping an eye on. And Georgia took care of business and took care of Alabama yesterday.
Yeah, Alabama has dropped off a little bit. That was their third loss. So they definitely have dropped off a little bit. But you have a lot of, you really do have something to look forward to in the college football playoffs. I know everybody starts thinking about the NFL before you know it, the season will be over, before you know it, the playoffs, the Super Bowl will, start the lineup for the Super Bowl. But the college football playoffs, very interesting. But we had a lot of interesting fights last night. So without further ado, why don't you ring the bell?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get right into it. Let's start off with the boxing. We're going to start off with the main event. This was in San Antonio, Texas. This was on Amazon Prime pay-per-view. And this was the WBC interim super lightweight title fight between Isaac Pitbull Cruz and Lamont Roach. And I thought this was a really good fight, very competitive. It was a close bout, but it ended with a lot of controversy. And both fighters, of course, both fighters are fighters. They're going to think they were robbed. They were going to think they won. But when I see and I read on the comments of the internet, it's pretty split out there, both ways trying to make a case of why their guy they're backing was robbed. I don't see a robbery at the end of the day either way. I saw a very close competitive fight, a fight that both fighters had their moment, a fight that Cruz landed the biggest shot in the knockdown, and a fight where the referee, as you said in the live stream, and also putting up a tweet, he was too involved. And it felt like he was interfering with the fight. But at the end of the day, I thought it came down to the championship rounds. And it was that close to me. Whoever wins these rounds wins the fight. And I thought Cruz won the 11th and 12th round. And for that, I would have gave it and had him eking it out. I'm fine with the draw. Let's get the rematch, though, this time, as Roach's last fight was a draw. And obviously did not get the rematch versus Tank Davis. But I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your breakdown of the fight and what you thought overall of the decision.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I concur with what you said with that, and I guess I would just sort of add to some of the things that you said and maybe just color it in a little bit more. But I think I never want to see the referee become the subject of the fight or a main part of the fight. Let him, don't ever get me wrong, let him keep the fight within the lanes that it needs to be a fair, fight, to be by the rules, to obviously protect both fighters at the end of the day. That's what he's there for. It's a very brutal sport, very, dangerous sport. So the referee's there for that. But he's not there to impose himself into the decision of the fight. I just thought he was kind of quick with that point. And if you don't take that point away that he takes away from Cruz for hitting in the back of the hip is where he was pointing to. If you don't take that point away, obviously we're not listening to the broadcast. We're live streaming ourselves, so we're not getting the narrative and the explanation of everything. But he doesn't take that point away. Cruz wins the fight. And it just seemed kind of quick. I know a lot of people are going to say Cruz is dirty, he's this, he's that. No, he's a fighter. His style, it is what it is. You get what you get with Cruz. He's going to come in there, he's going to barnstorm, he's going to wing, he's going to throw to the body. Some are going to go a little left, some are going to go a little right, some are going to go a little low. The referee has to control all that, no doubt about it. But I don't ever believe that Cruz is a guy that's looking to be dirty. I think that's just, he wasn't gifted with some of the abilities that other guys are gifted with. This was his gift. This is his gift. So he builds. What do you do when you build a fighter? You build around their strength. His strength is to be relentless. His strength is to be physical. His strength is to be, always coming forward, to endure, and to impose his will on you. So they build around that strength. So he fights in the identity of those strengths. And again, with that, you're not going to get all Marcus of Queensberry type look. You're going to get that with Roach. Roach, to his credit, he fights the way going in. I had said when we were handicapping the fight, by the way, full disclosure, I picked Cruz to win a decision in this. And it's not sour grapes. I didn't score the fight, but I have no problem with a draw. The only problem I have is that at the end of the day, if it was as close as it felt it was, he did take the 10th and 11th, and not every judge was on board with that. Most of them were, but they weren't all on board with that 10th and 11th. We should probably put the cards up for the people up there, and I'm sure that you already have that planned. But I just feel that it's hard to argue that he didn't take those last two rounds. And if those last two rounds would have made a difference, then even there, you would have eked it out for Cruz. And when I made the pick this way. If you look at in the ropes and everything that my son puts up there, you'll see not only the side that I wind up going or the prop that I wind up going with, but you'll see why. And it's all typed out. I don't type. I write it. My son types it out. Thank God he went to college and learned things that his old man never learned. But at the end of the day, I made no argument about the technically sounder fighter was Roach going in. And it showed throughout. He would throw the cleaner punches. He would throw sniper punches. You know, he would be accurate. He would throw the kind of textbook punches you expect when you're talking about the sweet science. Short and snappy, straight and true. He would look to control range. He would even be able to fight on the inside a little bit, maybe punching inside some of the widest shots of Cruz. At the end of the day, he would want to control the geography on the outside, use the jab, do a lot of counterpunching. You know, do what I always say, that saying of mine. Make the shorter man go through a bad neighborhood to get to you, and then mug him. He was doing that, but I also said in the write-up, he does a lot of single shots. And while he does all these things so well, like he did against Tank Davis, where a lot of people thought he got, robbed in that fight, where it was also a draw, as you pointed out, he allows sometimes for somebody to out-hustle him. In other words, his offensive output's not always that steady or that consistent. It doesn't take away from all the accolades I just threw at him. They're all true. And that's why it was a hard fight for me to handicap. But at the end, I went on the side that I thought Cruz would be able to fight his fight enough to outwork Roach, where he could win enough rounds that way with his body work, again, with his relentless style, with his volume of punches. There was never a doubt that the cleaner puncher, the cleaner looking fighter, the guy that you expect to see when you talk about an elite boxer, that would look to be Roach. At the end of the day, again, I thought it went the side of Cruz. It deserves a rematch. I'm going to throw in something a little different. I think sometimes the fans get influenced by listening to the commentators. I think they get obviously influenced by cheering for their own guy. I understand that. But it just seemed, I didn't listen to the broadcast, but a few people thought that a lot of people were telling me that the broadcast team was really kind of, I don't know, favoring is too strong a word, but really building up the side a little bit of all the good things I just pointed out that Roach was doing. And especially down the stretch before the 11th round, the championship rounds. Yeah, I thought that Cruz slowed down his output in some of those later rounds. No doubt about it. So that could emphasize the counterpunching. That could put a greater light when there's less chaos, less action. What are you going to see? You're going to see the cleaner punches. You're going to see the guy who is in that mode of fighting. It's going to look the way you want it to look. I actually thought there was some body language of Roach that really, and I hope this is understood by people the way I try to get it to be understood, and it's a hard thing to explain, but where he kind of, I would never use the word con, because there's no con in a ring when you have two fighters going at their earnest, going after each other, risking what they risk, purely facing things that most people never have to face up front the way they do. Your own doubts, your own, inhibitions, your own shortcomings of whatever they may have been in the past, whatever might have been connected with some of those doubts. There's nothing quite like two men that get in the ring and do that. But we do have a picture in our minds of what that boxer should look like. And when you have one guy who looks more like that boxer, which it was Roach, I think that it just magnifies what he's doing in a way where you're not seeing what the other guy's doing so much. You're not seeing that Cruz is still throwing a lot. He's still landing to the body. Yeah, they're not as crisp, but there's still an efficiency and effectiveness that shouldn't be discounted. That our attention is taken more to where Roach, with his style, can sell what he's doing. He can sell it. He can put it out there to grab more attention, to grab more of a light, to grab more of just of a belief that he's being more effective. When he moves off and he strides off and he throws those single clean shots and he moves off, that some of them aren't landing completely clean. But he's thrown them in a perfect way. He's thrown them in a formed way that we automatically attach to a greater level of accomplishment, of maybe even of ability. And automatically, I think we favor that style. And I think that Roach did a good job of fighting. I mean, you can't fake that. There's nothing that I'm talking about in that way. But he sold his style to the audience, maybe to the judges, in the way that he presented himself, in a more deliberate, boxing, favorable way, a way that could be more acceptable to, wow, that's what it should be. That's what it should be, not that. And it took away a little bit from, I think, some of the things that Cruz maybe could have gotten credit for, or should have gotten credit for. Close fight either way. Styles do make fights. What do you like? Do you like the guy that fights in a clean way where every punch you can see? Or do you like the guy who, again, do you like the guy who paints like a Rembrandt? Or do you like the guy who goes in there and he paints like a graffiti board? But at the end of the day, it's still art. It's still art. It's just one guy's art is different than the other guy's art. Whose art is more appreciated? And I think that was involved in this fight. I really do. I just wanted to make sure I put that out there because I know that that's probably not something that people are going to really hear too much about because I don't think there's too much understood about it. Close fight. Again, we got that, it was a draw, so we don't get that win. I did lose on the co-feature. I lost on that one with Fulton and Foster. It broke our string. We had a hell of a string going. But before that, we did give an extra one out there where we did it live. We did, of course, the Lara fight live with Gonzalez. And at the last minute, as they were getting in the ring, as the bell was getting ready to start, I said that the fight would go the distance, and you got plus back some money on that. Tried to make up for the loss.
I think that was a good breakdown by you, but I think the only thing I would add before moving on to these other fights that you're touching on is that with this fight, in the lead up to this, Roach's inactivity, he hadn't fought in so long. I thought he would fall behind early on. But I think where people, what you're describing and see the disconnect, you use the word conning of Roach, I think it was seeing the reverse style that they're not accustomed to seeing in Cruz. There was a big adjustment in this fight. In this fight, Cruz was not the man coming forward all the time. He had to make an adjustment. He became the boxer. He showed a dimension I didn't think he had. He took angles, and I think that wasn't accustomed to what the commentators and the judges are used to in Cruz, and maybe it affects some of their scoring. When I look at the scorecards of this fight, I don't know how all three judges did not give the 11th round. And how do all the judges, when the point was deducted from Cruz in the 7th, every judge gave that round to Roach. Not one gave it to Cruz, where it could have been 9-9 and then changed at the scorecards. I think the adjustments in the styles might have played into what you were just saying as well.
Yeah, listen, I don't think that one round that was dramatically different than what Cruz had been doing and does do. He started to box. I said he outboxed Roach that one round. I know a lot of people probably going to attack me for that, and that's fine, but I'll stand by it. For that one round, he outboxed him in a different way than he didn't out-aggression him or outwork him, or just push him back. He actually boxed brilliantly. He moved laterally, he stepped out, he gave angles, as you just said, he picked spots. He showed a dimension that most people don't think Cruz has. And you could understand why. And I think part of why he had to do that was Roach was counterpunching well, so he couldn't just come in aggressively. He didn't want to be countered. So he came up with an option. He came up with something else. And the bottom line is he came up with it. That he did that. It wasn't a mirage. We were seeing him do that. And I think that you're right, that drew people off. And when they saw that in their mind, they may have thought that he was capitulating to what Roach was doing, and he was trying to mimic Roach, and he was maybe lost, maybe doubtful that his style could work the way it usually works. Instead of looking at it as a positive, that he was showing another side to himself. Again, another dimension that made sense for him. And then he went back to being aggressive. So I think he didn't get credit for that. And I don't think that was understood. And I do think that was in the air. For all the things that at the end of the day may have conspired against him. I'll finish by what I started with. I didn't think the referee treated him really completely fairly, and Cruz said that himself. I didn't think he completely treated him fairly at the end of the day. And that was interesting what you said about the live scoring. When I heard that live scoring, how phenomenally high it was and large it was.
Not live scoring, the live odds, you're saying.
The live odds, I'm sorry. How high it was. I'm hearing it and I'm saying this is still a close fight. Why are they making those odds so high? Are they influenced by what I just finished talking about? Are they influenced by that? Are they influenced by the commentating? Are they influenced by all these scenarios that are in the air of the arena? Not just the two fighters, but above, mixed in there with the fight? And I think the answer is yeah. I don't know how those odds could be that high. At the end of the day, I guess they'll wind up doing it again, probably. Yeah, and maybe we'll get an answer then.
Yeah, and that's why I said during the live stream when the fight was ending, I said I'd rather have Cruz right now at plus 190 than be laying the money of Roach at minus 280 coming in. I think it was the right pick. I think, obviously, could have went either way, but in the end of the day, I will say this. Thinking that Cruz won and being a backer of Cruz, I did not agree with the one scorecard, 115-111 for Cruz. That's too wide. This was a close fight. It wasn't 115-111 either way. So we said enough. We covered it thoroughly. I hope we get the rematch and get to see both of these guys back in there. And anyway, we're going to keep it moving. We're going to go to the co-feature. And before we do that, I'm going to take a quick pause. Just thank our sponsor, Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens, the all-in-one daily drink to support better health and peak performance. These guys spent 10 plus years with top nutritionists and doctors to create this formula. It's made from 75 whole food sourced ingredients. It has vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, and antioxidants. This is like an insurance policy for your body's health. Athletic Greens is giving our listeners 3 travel packs for free and a free welcome kit including vitamin D3 and K2 and AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. So whether you're looking to boost your energy levels, support your immune system, or address gut health, Athletic Greens is the way to go. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/atlas. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/atlas. All right, let's go into this co-feature, bud. We got Stephen Fulton versus O'Shaquie Foster. Now, this fight, there's a lot to talk about what happened before the fight and with the weigh-in that maybe led into what happened during this fight. It was supposed to be the belt for Foster's 130-pound WBC title. And Fulton, the smaller man, moving up in weight, misses the weight contracted of 130, comes in heavy at 132 pounds. Usually, he would not then be eligible to win the title. The title would be vacant and Fulton would win. Fulton would have to pay a percentage of his purse over to Foster, and there'd be a lot of consequences to that. To me, it seemed like a big break. He didn't get those consequences because they said, hey, we'll make this fight still for the title at 135 pounds instead of 130, where you could still win the title, and he didn't have to drain himself or re-weigh. I thought that might be a big advantage to help him to keep his strength, and couldn't have been more wrong. Going into this one, it looked like he wasn't training. It looked like something was going on in training camp of why he missed that weight. You touched on it in the live stream. He doesn't have that natural tone to his body, but I didn't see the fire. I didn't see the demeanor. And from the second round on, I felt like there was no shot for him to get into this fight. He only had 8 knockouts coming in. You knew it wasn't going to be a big chance to catch him with a big shot. He had to outwork him. He had to get inside. He had to be gritty. He had to do everything you laid out in the pre-fight. He couldn't do it. He didn't do it. And credit to Foster. Kept him outside. Was the longer man, the faster man, the better man. Just want to hear your thoughts. Foster retains or wins the 135-pound title. And just want to see what you thought of this one.
Yeah, I want to apologize again. I know you don't like me to do that, but I just want to apologize. I didn't get that one right. You can't get them all right. I went for a reason, obviously, why I said that I thought Fulton could pull it off. His resume, the fighters that he'd been in there with. I know he had been dropped a couple times. I know he had been stopped by Inoue, but Inoue is different. He's one of the great fighters of our time. So, and he'd been in there with a little bit better resume, like I said already. But I also knew how dangerous the fight would be. But I was looking for something. And I'll tell you what I was looking for. I expected it. I thought there was similarities, believe it or not, to Cruz and Roach in a way that Cruz had to be the aggressor to win the fight because of his physical dimensions, because of the, just the physicality of the fight, the abilities that he's born with, his obviously his size and everything else, that if Cruz ain't aggressive, he's got no shot against Roach. And I thought the same thing in this fight. I thought that the burden of making a fight, of taking more risk, was going to be on the shoulders of Fulton, just like it would be on Cruz. I also thought, like Roach, that Foster was technically at the end of the day, that I thought that Foster was technically the superior guy as far as what we think of as superior for the most part in boxing 101. First of all, he had the physical assets of height and length and he knew how to use them. He could box on the outside. He could control the outside. He could set traps. He could set counters. He could make Fulton take a risk trying to get to him and counter him on the way in. And then he could keep him at the end of his jab and look to set up the table off the jab and then look to eat with straight punches off of that, whether it was the right hand from the orthodox position or the straight left from the southpaw position, which he showed he has a great ability of fighting from either stance. So I understood the battle that was going to be in front of Fulton. The reason I took him was the same reason why I took Cruz over Roach. But obviously I was a lot closer in that fight. I thought that Fulton could outwork Foster. I thought there would be spots where Foster would, he'd control the outside. He'd use his jab. He would set traps and look to counter. But I thought there was spots where he would be defensive, have defensive moments where he lacked some offensive output. I thought there would be dead spots with Foster, is what I'm saying. Where he'd still look good, he'd still control, he'd still have those edges, but he would go dead in the water and not be active with his hands offensively, where it would give Fulton a chance to outwork him, out-hustle him, and win some close rounds. There were no close rounds. I don't know if he won any round, except one, because he never got into the position to do those things, to outwork him. So that's where I came up short. And that's where Foster, he shined. He used his physical God-given assets of length and height, very cerebral, very accurate, doesn't waste anything. See, sometimes I think that those strengths could be a weakness, where somebody can out-hustle a guy with the strengths that I just described Foster has. But it didn't turn out that way, because whether it was mental, physical, emotional, or it was just all Foster doing what he did, Fulton never put himself in a position to really outwork Foster. And kudos to Foster. He fought, he put an exhibition on of what boxing is.
No, absolutely. Great breakdown. I mean, we were 17 wins and 1 loss over at the ropes heading into this fight. And always full transparency, our streak ended on this one. But we don't lay the odds, guys. Even with a loss, we took by decision at plus 160. So that minimizes the losses that way. We thought we were going to get it back, plus 190 in Isaac Cruz. We pushed there. So it was our first losing night at the ropes. You broke the streak. But 17-2, pretty good. We'll see what's next for more of the fights. What's next for us, bud, is another title fight on this card. And that was Erislandy Lara versus Johan Gonzalez. And that was for the WBA middleweight title that Lara holds. We were supposed to get the fight versus Janibek. Janibek had popped for a test. After the findings, the fight was off. And in replacement, we get Johan Gonzalez. The last-minute replacement comes in and saves the day. Credit to both of these guys. What a fun fight. We started off over at the YouTube channel here, the fight. We were doing this fight. We did the Foster Fulton as well in the live stream. And you nailed it. You said what he was. You watched some film on Gonzalez. You said that he's going to throw a lot of punches. He's going to leave openings. And that there might be the chance for Lara to score the KO, which he almost did in the final seconds. But you expected it to go rounds. You gave over 8.5 rounds for that fight. And you said, yes, it would go the distance during the live stream at plus 250. Gave that out in the third round.
He'll give you a chance to do two things at that point. He'll give you a chance to work, to out-hustle, maybe catch up a little bit. But more importantly, in this fight, he'll give you a chance to last rounds, because he's fighting at a more contained pace. And if I'm a betting man, I'm saying, hey, last-minute fight. It seems like Gonzalez came in good condition. He was getting ready for something. His weight was good. He looks good. Maybe you want to go rounds. Maybe you want to take a play, that's going to go rounds.
Lara's minus 2,800. And unless you like Gonzalez, nobody's touching that. But will the fight go the distance? You could still get back plus 250.
Yeah, I would take 250. And again, it's a gamble. I guess that's why they call it gambling.
You were spot on. I said before, credit to both of these guys. Lara for taking this tough opponent on short notice with a lot of heart, very awkward and unorthodox, throwing a bunch of punches. And Gonzalez coming in, not to just survive or get a paycheck. He was trying to win up until those final seconds. Fun fight to watch. Lara in complete control, retains the title. Just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that's why Gonzalez, with seconds left, almost got knocked out because he was trying. He was always trying. He could have, mailed it in at some point. Gave a great effort. Last minute replacement. He earned his paycheck. He could have said, okay, I'm going to survive the last few, and I'm not going to throw as many. Therefore, there'd be less chance of Lara countering or catching me coming in, timing me in between one of my wide shots. Because one thing a counterpuncher like Lara needs, cooperation. He needs the opponent to give him something to counter. And if Gonzalez stopped giving him something to counter, Gonzalez wouldn't have got dropped in the last round. It would have been much less risk for him. But to your point, he was there to try to win. And that's why with seconds left, and I said it on the live stream, rounds before that, this ain't over till it's over. Like Yogi Berra says, it ain't over till the last bell rings. There's a chance for Lara to catch him with a straight left hand because he'd been catching with straight left hands from the southpaw position, Lara being a southpaw, where he was catching him splitting a guard down the middle. But what he wasn't doing, he wasn't blinding him with the jab first. If you blind the guy with the jab and then the left hand's right behind it, if it was an orthodox fight, it'd be blind him with the left and right hands right behind. If you do that, you can score a knockout because the guy don't see it coming. But as long as Gonzalez could see it, he could survive it. But it was getting closer and closer to Lara nailing him one of those left hands where he didn't see it. And he finally did with seconds left. Almost got the knockout, didn't get it. And at the end of the day, it was a little bit of a bonus, I guess you could say, that we put out there for people to grab a little something if they felt like it. And some of our people in the ropes commented that they did get on that. So that cushioned the blow a little bit for me in the Foster Fulton one. That made me feel a tiny bit better. But give credit to Gonzalez taking the fight on short notice, putting forward that kind of effort. And give credit to a 40-year-old Lara who's always in great shape, who takes care of his body, who's been around, he's been a champion for so long. He is the epitome of really, in a lot of ways, of what Mayweather was always the epitome of. If you're a smart, solid defensive fighter, again, a pursuer of the sweet science, a follower of the sweet science, a participant of the sweet science, you could be around longer than most people are around. And that's Lara. He's still around, and he's still around at a good level. I know that he's been beating a lot of these guys in the last couple of years that are not quite at his level of ability. There's no doubt about that. There's levels to this. And Lara shows with these levels, even at 42, those levels, they really show. They really stand out. And straight beats round. Lara's straighter punches beat the round. Even at 42, his legs. He does a motorcycle around the ring. He did a little more of that when he was younger. But now he steps off. He moves lateral. He sets traps. He changes range on you. Again, he uses that length, that long jab to set up his straight left hand, a power punch for a southpaw. He sets traps on you. The guy is still doing a hell of a job at 42. He deserves a lot of credit. He gets a lot of credit over here. His he used to get knocked a little bit for not being an exciting fighter. And he's much more entertaining than he was when he was younger. And there was more emphasis with the legs on the defense. Now he sets himself. And he's even more of a puncher now because he sets himself to punch. He still has that defensive acumen, but he steps off. He doesn't just run off. And he's always in control, always ready to fire. Not just defend, but to fire. He is a guy that's a practitioner of the sweet science. 42 years old. He's magnificent.
Yeah, well said. He's a first ballot sure thing Hall of Famer. He has not lost since 2018 was his last loss. And if you go back and look at his record, other than maybe Paul Williams, his first loss, they all could be debated and potentially controversial or splits, including that Hurd one, including Canelo and other fights. Great fighter, great praise by you, great breakdown. And the final thing I'd say to that, talking about at 42, I was just impressed with how calm he is, with all that experience you're talking about, and how good the gas tank was. Because he had to let his hands go to keep Gonzalez off of him. And I was thinking at 42, will he start to slow down? Will he be huffing and puffing in the corner? He was as cool and calm as could be, like he's done it hundreds of times before.
I think part of that, what you're seeing cardiovascular-wise, that you're identifying, obviously he conditions himself, he takes care of himself, he lives right, all of that. But also that he's calm in that environment, that he's relaxed. When people are not calm, they burn faster. They waste energy. They get tired. And he is a guy, as cool as a cucumber in that environment. And that's a big reason why you see him the way you see him in the late rounds, where it looks like, it's a Sunday stroll in the park. He's hardly breathing. And I said it during the live stream that in that way reminded me of the great Mexican champion, Salvador Sanchez, where I'll never forget watching him fight. What a great fighter. And he fought back in the day when they still went 15. And I remember him in the round before the 15th to 14th round sitting on a stool in a really good, tough fight, competitive fight. And he was sitting there as though he was sitting in church. I mean, just sitting in the park on a Sunday afternoon feeding the pigeons instead of in the middle of a fight. He was just sitting there with his mouth closed, hardly breathing. And I said, that's greatness. That's greatness. And you see the same thing with Lara. That's one of the reasons why you don't get tired.
No different than in my sport with a quarterback in the pocket. You got to be poised. You got to have some moxie to you. You got to be calm with bodies around your feet. And those that aren't and go into the fetal position and put the eyes down, they're not going to have the success. Like you said, the great Yogi Berra, it ain't over till it's over. If you guys want to learn from the fight and watch, go back and watch the recap of our live stream for this fight, for the Foster Fulton fight, again here at the YouTube channel. But you will also crack up and get a little kick because, like I was saying, it ain't over till it's over. I almost jinxed it, and thank goodness Gonzalez got up and saw that final count. So with that being said, that's the final recap in the boxing world. I do want to throw a little couple things. There was so much going on in this week and throw at you before we shift over to the main event and cover UFC 323 and that monster upset. I just want to touch on real quick. On the undercard of that fight was a really good scrap between Jesus Ramos and Shane Mosley Jr. Great heart by both of these guys. Unbelievable chin, good action, fun fight to watch. Obviously, that's his son up, former world champion Shane Mosley. And also, on one of the undercard fights, former world champion Frank Martin finally returned. Bud, that's a year and a half since his KO loss to Tank Davis. He knocked out, we were just talking about Lara and the great Cuban boxers. He knocked out Ranzis Bartholomew, getting a little long in the tooth now, but a devastating knockout. And then finally, just want to mention one of our favorite guys and a friend of the show, Ja Opotaya, the IBF Cruiserweight champion. He had a fight early morning in the States, Saturday in Australia. And another kind of stay busy fight, right, bud? But 8th round, took care of business for the 40-year-old journeyman Husan Sankara from Germany. And he keeps it rolling. We will see if these bigger fights are coming next and unifications. Obviously, Benavidez is going to be fighting Gilberto Ramirez at cruiserweight next. So that won't be it for Ja. But excited to see who will be next. Just wanted to touch on that, bud. We got a lot more next week. We might even have some prizes during the week for the ropes. We don't have the time to preview here. But Diego Pacheco's fighting next week. Badu Jack's fighting. There is a lot going on in the boxing world.
Yeah, as far as Opataya, he didn't do it with just power. You know what I like about that? I know, again, it's levels. He's fighting a guy at a different level, no doubt about it. And he's been doing that his last few fights. And at the end of the day, I don't know if that could possibly be a hindrance to him when he gets in there with the top guys, which he is. He's the top guy. And when he gets in there with the other top guys, does it in some way hurt him a little bit that he's been fighting a level that you can get away with things you can't get away with at that next level. I don't know if it will, but I know I love Opataya. You love him. We got friendly with him and his father over in Saudi Arabia with all those trips. We love the man that he is, the fighter he is. We think he's the top guy there. But he didn't score that knockout with, again, different level of fighter, but he didn't score with just power. He did it with technique and power. He slipped the right hand, and then he countered with the left hand, and he did it beautifully. And as far as Ramos and Mosley, listen, it was a good, entertaining scrap. It really was. Mosley showed a lot of heart. They both did. But at the end of the day, Ramos landed the harder, most significant punches, more of them from the southpaw position. He was able to land that southpaw right hook quite a bit. Mosley will stand up straight in front of you. He paid a price with those, eating some of those right hooks, and even a straight left hand from the southpaw position that Ramos was able to consistently catch him with. There were spots there where Mosley, came on a little bit with that southpaw killer, the straight right hand against the southpaw Ramos, but at the end of the day, Ramos landed the cleaner, harder punches more often to pretty handily win that fight, I thought, at the end of the day. And I was impressed a little bit with the experience of Ramos showing late in the fight, where all of a sudden he started to do more counterpunching, not just being in front, coming forward, but countering pretty well down the stretch. So, an entertaining fight, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of action. We just try to touch on it all and recap it thoroughly. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And we're going to finish off in the UFC, our MMA fans. UFC 323 was in my backyard here, Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena. And he was going for history. Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan. He was trying to become the only fighter and champion in the UFC to defend the title 4 times in one calendar year. And I'll just start off by saying this, bud. You always told me as a kid that there's no S on anyone's chest. There's no Superman out there. And I started to believe that maybe Merab was. Maybe he really was a machine. And Yan proved your saying right and proved me wrong for thinking that. He proved that he is human. He does bleed just like us. And he did what I thought could never be done. He beat Merab at his own game. I mean, the takedown defense, phenomenal by Yan. But how about taking him down himself? How about the strikes, the nasty to him? Overall, one of the best performances I've seen. I don't know if anybody in the world touches Yan that night at any weight the way he looked. He was possessed. He gets back his strap. What a road he's gone down to overcome some controversial losses in the past. Stayed on track, gets an opportunity, makes the best of it. I say this with the most utmost respect and compliment. What 2 savages both of these guys were. What a fight. I want to hear your thoughts, but in the end, congratulations once again, the new champion, Petr Yan.
Yeah, 2 champions. 2 champions in every way. Inside and outside the ring, the way they conduct themselves, no excuses for Merab after the loss, after he's been winning so often. Just, again, I used the word earlier for a fight, I use it again, the epitome of champions behavior. It's not enough to fight like a champ. You got to behave like one. They both behave like champions. They are champions. And, it's a funny thing. I had picked this fight to go the distance. I said it's gonna go the distance. Where a lot of people thought it was gonna end early. You couldn't help but think that in two ways. What Merab's track record has been, he's been just destroying everybody, especially in rematches. You know, he fights O'Malley, it goes the distance. He rematches O'Malley, he got better, and then he finishes O'Malley. A lot of people thought, and I could understand why. How could you not? They thought that the way he dominated Yan the first time, that he would do the same thing this time. And as you said, it wasn't going to be. Yan changed. Yan came as prepared mentally. And that's where it starts. Mentally and physically and technically as you could be. He had a fight plan. He had the right fight plan. He was going to strike. He was going to counter. He was going to refuse to be taken down for the most part, and definitely not any damage done to him when he was taken down, but he was going to have a great takedown defense, which he always had. But now he took it to another level. Now he went beyond takedown defense. He actually took down the takedown artist, Merab, which was extraordinary. It was unexpected. And that's why Merab was such a huge prohibitive favorite going in. And he did what I thought when I watched the tape of the first fight he needed to do. He countered with right hands as Merab came in. Merab's very aggressive. He'll come at you sometimes thrown with a little space in between his punches from a little bit out where you have a chance if you're set to punch to catch him coming in. That's what Yan did. Yan countered him with right hands, with different shots, but particularly right hands, coming in on the striking. And he held an edge in the striking. I mean, it was a brutal fight. Both guys had their moments, but the strength of Merab to dominate on the mat was the biggest shock that Yan actually flipped it around. And that's why I said in the tweet after the fight, I put up there that this was like that movie, Trading Places, with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, where they traded places. They traded places. Yan became the machine. Whoever would have thought that he was going to be the guy we were saying was never going to stop. The engine kept going, where he was never tiring. He was never wavering. That he actually wore out. By the end, you could see he was wearing out Merab. He was breaking Merab down. That seemed to be an impossibility, but nobody has an S on their chest. Nobody. We're all human. It's a matter of what you prepare yourself to face and do, and even suffer to do. That the human ability, spirit, to be able to rise to special occasions is uncanny sometimes. But it's there. It's real. It's real. I mean, whether you go back to this magnificent country's beginnings in the wars, the wars of what people did to protect this country, to fight for this country, you know, to liberate this country, what people did, what they were willing to go through, that is truly embodied by our Creator that put it there, that human spirit to go to places that there's almost no explanation for it except that people can go there when they believe they have to. They find a way to go there when it's important enough, when it's urgent enough. And that's exactly what Yan did. Great fight. Great fight. You know, Merab said right at the end that we're going to run it back. You know, obviously he needs rest. I want to touch on your point before I finish up. 4 fights in a calendar year. That's a lot, even for a machine. I'm not making any excuses, but that's a lot. That is a lot. And I saw a video today where Merab sparred the day of. The morning of. He sparred the morning of that fight. Is that correct? Did I see that accurately?
Yeah,
and that's
so
crazy.
That's what I wanted to get into, because it's easy to start picking holes and start doing what I'm about to do after the fact. When you're winning, nobody's saying that. He's been doing a lot of this stuff for a while. He's been active, right? There was 3 title defenses before this 4th one in this calendar year. But yeah, I mean, I know your routine, and I know how you treat your fighters the day before a fight. Forget the day of a fight, the week before a fight. The hard work is done. What do you always say? It's all over but the shooting. Now it's the mental. Now it's the recovery. Now it's the rest. I just can't fathom and understand how he would be allowed. And I love Ray Longo. It's not a shot at anybody, but how do you protect this guy from himself? How do you go spar 5 rounds and then have to go there and empty it out versus Yan? And the guy who finally, to your point, matches the cardio, did that have something to do with it? Would this be different if he didn't spar that day? I don't want to take away from Yan, but you got to talk about it.
Yeah, it's there. It's sitting there. Whether it's the elephant in the room, whatever, you don't want to talk about, but it is there. Look, there's nobody better at training this, doing this than my friend Ray Longo and his partner. They do an incredible job. But you know what? Sometimes you can't control these guys that are great in their own way. Like there's certain things that you might not even be able to stop them from doing. They want to do it. They would look at it as a negative that you didn't let them do it. That would mentally disrupt them. That's where they get their confidence from. That they did more than the other guy, even when it doesn't make sense to us humans, if you will. It works for them. It gives them the extra confidence they need. It gives them the assurance that, even the day of, I did something that no one else would do. Now, I do think it's undermining physically. And I think most people would. And I think Ray probably does, to be quite frank. But at the end of the day, what's he going to do? Stop his fighter from doing something that he's done before, that works for him, that makes him feel that he has put in that extra piece to make him superior to anyone else? You're going to take that away from him? No. I don't think you'd be allowed to. And I think that in that way, you might be doing something negative to hurt your fighter if that's what he believes in. At the end of the day, physiologically, it is not really something that gives you an edge. It does undermine you. And it does speak to how mental this game is. In his mind, that's where he gets confidence from. That he believes that it's always about work. A guy that comes from the background of a Merab, it's always about overcoming. It's always about doing more than the other guy. It's always about doing something that couldn't be done. It's always about that. It's not about just extraordinary speed or power or those neon talents I talk about that are God-given, genetically given. No, it's about drive. It's about making yourself that person, that monster, that guy that refuses to be chipped away by the things that chip away at all of us. That he's beyond that, and by being beyond that, he looks to get his. You fill a tank. You fill your car up with a tank of gas. His tank of gas isn't just the gas that we see him burning as far as what he eats, as far as how much road work he does, as far as how much sparring he does, but it's about how much he punishes himself. That there's some people that believe at the end of the day that's the X factor. That's what makes them different. That's what separates them. That he's willing to punish himself, torture himself, where somebody else doesn't. Even if it means the day off. When it is a physical negative, there's no arguing it. There's no arguing it. It is a physical negative. But in his mind, it is what he has to do to be different, to be superior, to be better, to be always knowing that he is willing to suffer more than someone else. And it's hard to stop somebody from believing that, because that is their greatest strength, is that belief that they can go to a place that no one else could go to, because they've always made themselves go there. So it's a very interesting thing. It really is to look at the psychological part of what I just put out there.
Yeah, and the final thing I'll say, just to piggyback off what you said, is you talked about how punishing that is to himself, how he's punishing himself to get stronger mentally. The weight cut was so punishing to begin with for him. You could see it on him. They're not easy weight cuts. And now to punish yourself the next morning instead of resting, I wonder if he's running down the machine in the body, because every time he was touched to the body specifically, he was hurt. He was hurt every round just about. The third round was incredible. They both had their moments, but he got hurt in the first, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. Like I said, to the body. So I just wonder, was it a perfect place shot from Yan, or was it what we're talking about? Was it finally the accumulation, that the fourth fight in 1 year, the sparring the day of, that the overtraining finally showed itself, and he was vulnerable?
You know, I think it was the shot around the liver area, a kick. It's enough to get hit a punch. He got hit a kick there. I think that's, instead of looking at how he got hurt, you know how I'm going to look at it? And you're right to bring that out. I'm going to look at it the way he dealt with it, the way he recovered from it, the way he overcame it. That's extraordinary. I'll say it again. That's extraordinary with a capital extraordinary. E. It's almost unheard of. We've seen so many people in my sport get hit a left hook to the liver. They don't recover. They don't recover. I know the Gaddy Ward fight was incredible too, that they recovered. Those was superhuman acts, those particular nights that happened. But very rarely do you see somebody get hit clean in the liver and recover. And then to do it 4 times, 3 times, 5 times, to get hit there, and 1 time or 2 times by a kick, not even by a punch, by a kick, the strongest part of your body, your leg, to get hit with that and to survive that and to overcome that speaks to what more. And here's the thing, I'll put myself on the line again. It's what I've done. It's what I need to do if I believe in something. How else are you going to be successful if you don't put yourself on the line with your beliefs? I do think that physically something was probably compromised by him training that day. But I'll tell you another thing, to your point. He had a terrible weight crash, to make that weight. And that invokes doubt. I don't care who you are. That invokes doubt. I had to kill myself to make this weight. There's a little bit of doubt that starts to creep in there. How does he kick doubt away? How does keep doubt away? How does he chase doubt away? By training that day. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, I have no doubt that is coupled to that after having a terrible weight, a weight loss, and having to cut the weight in an extreme way that he did, and the doubt is there a little bit. Will I be ready? Will I be ready after that extreme weight cut? I'm going to make sure I'm ready. I'm going to train that day. I'm going to test myself that morning to show myself I am ready. I can't have doubts that night. I have to know. I have to have answers. These kind of men have to have answers. And he had to have that answer. And that's why he went and did something that really shouldn't be done. You should be saving and resting and rehydrating and doing all the things that you need to do to overcome that weight crash. But he had to test himself to chase away any doubt. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
No, I'm so glad we touched on this and you said that, because I think it's a lesson for everybody out there that the greatest maybe bantamweight champion in UFC history has mental doubts and needs to do this before a fight to go in there to get stronger. That everybody's going through something, and you wouldn't expect that, especially me from Merab, the machine. But he is human after all. And with that being said, the final thing I ask you is, with all this conversation, hopefully we get the rematch. Does Merab do it again?
I think part of the success of Yan is this. And I saw
I'm not saying does he win the fight and win. I'm saying does he go and train the day of the fight again? Or is this going to change things now?
Maybe his weight is made better, where he doesn't have to chase that devil away from the door. I would hope so. I would think that Ray, being an experienced trainer he is, will have a conversation, and his partner will have a conversation about that, and they will change something. Merab's not stupid. He's smart. You know, he's not just a savage animal, he's a smart savage animal, and all in a complimentary way, like you said earlier. But this is, I'll finish with this. Why I said, Jan, I really felt it was going to go the distance, and why I didn't have the nerve to pick him. But I thought about it. I don't know if I told you. I think I did, but I wrote it up pretty good, and I think you put it up there. But I thought about it for a second of the possibility of taking Jan, and I'll tell you why. He got so. This is a proud guy. This is a guy was a champion. This is a guy who's a top guy, a legendary guy, a great guy, along the lines of a Merab almost, and. Then he went into a bad streak there, a little bad, waters there he went through. And then he came back with three straight wins before this Merab rematch. When I watched that first fight, he didn't really know what to expect with Merab. Merab wasn't quite Merab. He hadn't quite made his debut as the machine Merab. He was winning fights, had a streak of wins, everything. He was on his way to getting to where he finally got to the title fight against O'Malley, and he won the title. But it was before that. And Jan didn't know fully what to expect. And he got blitzed. He never got a chance to get his bearings. I mean, it was like being in a storm. Every time you try to get out, bang, another wave hits you. Bang, another wind hits you. Another gust of wind. You never get to equilibrium. You didn't expect that storm. And he didn't expect that storm. He survived it, but he lost every round. And I thought to myself, a guy like this, of his level, mentally and physically and accomplishment-wise, he's going to be ready this time. And I always say, forewarned, look out. When a guy is forewarned, he's foreprepared. And I thought to myself, he's not going to get caught by surprise. He's not going to get blitzed this time. He's going to be ready for that. He's going to have an answer for that, the best that he can. And sure enough, that was the difference. The advantage of surprise the other way. Merab didn't expect him. I'm not saying he overlooked him, but you said it earlier. We said it. They're human. They're not really machines. You start to take things for granted a tiny bit. You say, I'll dominate him again. And where the other guy is saying, I'm prepared now where I wasn't. That ain't happening again. And I think those mindsets really were a big part. Those two mindsets. One guy, I dominate him. I'll do it again. The other guy, he ain't doing it again. I'm ready this time. That was a big part of that fight. If they fight again, Jan won't have that advantage. That'll switch back on the side of Merab a little bit, where he's forewarned. He's forewarned mentally. And boy, oh boy, all I can say is that will be interesting. Enough said.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope we get it. Jan has a chip on his shoulder, and he wants Merab to go do what he did. He wants him to earn the opportunity to get another crack at him for the title. I hope we get it right away. It was a great breakdown. It was very thorough. Before we sign off here, I do want to just give our well wishes to the former champion, Alexandre Pantoja. He suffered a nasty elbow injury. Unfortunate, only 26 seconds into the co-main event fight versus Joshua Van. And that snaps his 8-fight win streak. We know he'll be back once he recovers, so just want to say well wishes to him. And congrats to Van, the striker, the young man. We know he didn't want to win the title that way, but he has it, and I'm sure he'll get a chance to win the rematch the way he wants to.
Yeah, I agree. I happen to think that Van, I watched him, we had one of the fights I was covering for ESPN, you were with me. And I remember after I watched Van, it was the fight before Pantoja, of course, and by winning that fight, he got the title fight. And I remember saying, this guy's special. This guy's, I see this guy having real chance to be a world champion. And again, it was a freak accident. Nobody wants to see that. We just pray that Pantoja, I don't know what the final medical situation was.
They don't know, but it's all over the place. UFC was reporting on air last night a shoulder. We're all saying it's got to be an arm or an elbow.
Yeah.
Now it's not the shoulder. It probably is that. I don't know exactly what it was, but it looked nasty.
Oh, it was nasty. And again, I just pray, was it a dislocation? Was it a break? You'd rather be a dislocation, obviously, than a break. Whatever it was, we pray that he heals up. I'd say it again. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to win that way. But before that fight, which wasn't a fight, it never took place as far as I'm concerned. You had the injury that you had, and that was the end of it. But Van looks like a young guy that can be really, really special. And I'll finish with this, if you don't mind, Bud. And I know that you would share these sentiments. Talking about a young guy who also is special, is our own Richie Limbacher, who is right in front of me right now. He does the filming every week. And not only does he do the filming, but he does the editing for a lot of these videos that you and him work so hard to put up there. Also, we got our man Bennett too, that works on the West Coast, that does the videos of, well, he does these shows, he edits these shows, but Richie films them, does a lot of extra work for us. And he had, this morning, before this, he was in an MMA tournament, Tiger Showman tournament, and he had 2 fights today, and we're very proud of him. He did really well. He did himself proud. He did his family proud. He did everybody proud. You know, we talk about boxing, we talk about MMA, we talk about champions, we talk about winners. We got nothing but winners around us. I'm very fortunate that I have you, and I have Richie, I have Bennett. Obviously, I have my family. We have all the people that come from the audience to watch this, to support us, to tell us that this is worthwhile doing, which I appreciate very much. But Richie, congratulations, Richie Limbacher. You are a champion. Proud of you. Proud of you.
Great job, Richie. He doesn't just have great hair, Bud, or great with the camera and have those skills. He could fight a little bit, but congrats, Rich. And thank you for all your hard work. And thank you, Bud. Thank you all for being with us. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys again next week.